Hi again, we're back for another repair video. This time we're gonna do unibody Macbook Pro. This is I think 2011 year. It's a customized model with a metal bezel and a matte screen. Matte screen comes in a higher resolution, so this is not the model with the glass. We will do a video with the glass as well. Glass is very difficult to replace, so I have to show you how to do that as well. This bezel is very similar to remove like the Macbook Air bezel. Whoever watched the video on the Macbook Air saw how I did that, and I'm gonna do the same thing here again. I'm gonna use my heat gun. I will put the heat up to 5.5. The pressure of the air in the middle, about 13, 14. So basically we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna replace the screen on this one. As you can see, when you turn it on, the screen is cracked right there. Just gonna turn this off because I don't want it to boot up. Replacing the screen on this model can be a little bit tricky. I will tell you what to be aware of and what to be careful about. Most likely I will go through the whole thing to show you how to avoid damaging the actual board while you're replacing the screen. I don't always do that because I've done it many times and I can actually replace the screen without thinking about damaging the fuse or LED driver on the board. But when we get to that point, I'll tell you what to do. Okay, so we heat up the bezel like we did that with the Macbook Air. Actually, this might be too much of pressure in the air, a little bit less. If the air is too strong, the bezel might not heat that well and you might melt the rubber because of that. So I don't want to do that. I want to apply enough heat on the side. This model does not have that much adhesive as the Macbook Air has, because the bezel might be a little bit thinner than the Macbook Air model, but on this one it's much easier to bend the bezel. The bezel is less flexible, it's an aluminum alloy, and you bend this, you might as well buy a new one, because it's going to look very ugly. You will never bend it back the same way it was because the metal stretches and it will leave marks, so you don't want to do that. So be careful, heat it up enough, don't heat up too much in one spot like we said in the other video. You will melt the rubber trim, which is the gasket. If you're doing it for customer, I'm sure your customer will complain. People who have this model also are very picky because they buy this model for graphic design usually, and they pay attention to small details, and they will see scratches and rips in the gasket or the rubber trim, how we call it. So you saw how this it goes easy in. That's because I apply enough heat. The bottom again does not have that much adhesive, so I usually do that right away. At the end is a little bit more stiff. Okay, we'll apply some more heat there. So the bottom you might as well remove right away because the bottom is something that does not need a lot of heat. Keep the heat gun away from the keys and away from this clutch cover because you don't want to melt it. All these parts are replaceable, but it's just going to cost you extra money, so you don't want to do that. Okay, that will do for the bottom. There we go. Let's do it like this. I position it the way how it's easier for me to handle with my arm. Doesn't need to sit in one position, so move it around however you want, as long as it's comfortable for you. That means that you'll be more careful and it will be easier to remove the bezel. Apart from 11-inch, this model has the camera right here. It's underneath the frame, so you don't have to worry about it. You will not damage the camera while you're going around with your prior or spudger or whatever you have. This model, on the other hand, has a couple of little pins that holds the bezel which I will show you at the end. One is here, two are here next to the camera, and another one is here at the end. These pins are pretty handy. If you break them off, this model is actually doesn't have the covered camera, but still it's pretty deep inside. You won't damage it that easily unless you're really not careful about it. These pins are very good to keep on there because these pins stretch out the bezel and keep it in a proper position. So I will flip this because it's easier for me to do it like that. On this side, this screen is much faster and easier to replace than the screen on Macbook Air. Don't get me wrong when I say it's not as easy as an repair, but you have to be careful. In this case, you can really badly damage the motherboard if you're not careful, and I will get to that point and I will show you what not to do so you can avoid that. Okay, so I got rid of the bezel almost. Okay, like I said, don't bend the bezel. You bend the bezel, it's going to be very bad. It's going to look very bad. See, it's straight, it's flat. I set that on the side, clean it later, and apply adhesive later. Okay, so the screen is being held by 6 screws around, and you can actually see them because there are small brackets which are holding the screen in. Remove those first. Okay, with this model the screen is connected to the board via LVDS cable, which is around here. So it's in the back on the screen. It's not that easy to pull it out. So when you pull this out, you can see that there is no cable there. So you need to unplug it from the other side, of the back. Pull out the cable as much as you can and bend the screen forward. Remember, this is a bad screen, so we're not careful with this screen. We don't care about this screen. We do care about the motherboard though. Since the cable is in the back, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this tape. And I'm not going to do what I usually do. I replace this without the actual taking off the actual bottom and unplugging the LVDS cable from the board. But I will do it for you because I don't want you to damage something. Because this is not a video of just how you replace your screen. This is a video of how you properly replace your screen. There is a little latch that holds the connector. That latch needs to be lifted, and then you can pull the screen out. We will pull the screen out after I show you how not to do a replacement so you don't damage your screen. A lot of people did this video showing you how to replace the screen but never actually plugged in the cable or properly, or never actually bothered to tell you that you can kill the fuse on the board just by replacing the screen. So we're going to remove the bottom and you're going to see what happens if you don't plug this cable straight and evenly. There are two ways of being safe on this repair. One is by unplugging the LVDS cable from the board. The other one is by removing the battery from the board, which basically removes any power and prevents you from damaging the board just by plugging in the screen. I will do both. I will remove the battery so you know how to remove the battery. So you see this extends a little bit around, outside of just the screen replacement. You need to open the bottom of the computer, but it is pretty easy. There is nothing major you need to do. You just need to unscrew the battery. Now these batteries have different screws and sometimes you'll be in a problem not being able to actually take it out. So we're going to remove the battery. I'll show you what exactly I meant by that. The screw is a star, 5-point star, and the screwdriver to unscrew that is a little bit specific. It's not a standard screwdriver. Apple made people's repairmen's life a little miserable in this. So you basically need to get a screwdriver if you can unscrew it. Some of them will come with a 3-sided screw, some of them will come with a 5-star screw, with a 5-point star screw. Remove the battery. This prevents us from blowing up the fuse. On this board, the fuse is underneath the board. Even though you can't see it, you can still damage it, because the cable, the way how it's plugged in, if you plug in the cable unevenly back inside the board and there's power in the battery, or the connector is, I mean the DC power is in, you will damage most likely the fuse because it shorts it out. These last couple of pins are the backlight pins, and if you short them out, the fuse will blow. If the current gets too strong, the fuse will kill the LED driver. Fuse is easily fixable, but not by a person who doesn't know how to solder small components. LED driver is very hard to do. So even when you plug in the cable back, you need to do it straight, very evenly, to actually plug it in. If you don't plug it in straight, and you don't plug this, then you don't put this latch over to hold it, you can still damage it. So we're going to remove this little bracket that covers the hinge, because that holds the cable. So the cable will become loosened up a little bit, and it will give you enough movement to actually move the cable and pull out the screen and put the new screen in. I'm doing this only because I know that somebody who sees this video is a beginner, and if you try to do it the way how I do it, you will most likely damage something, because everybody damages this stuff first time. I blew fuses up, I replaced them, so I know how it is. So we're going to remove the tape, and we remove this latch, and here we go. This screen goes up. Imagine you're replacing the screen and for customer, and you told the customer it's going to take 2 hours, and the customer comes in 2 hours and you blew up the fuse on the motherboard. What are you going to do then? So be careful with this. So what I did, I pulled out the cable so that I can actually plug in the screen easily inside. And I don't have to bend the screen inverter board or bend the bezel. This is the proper way of doing it. I do it, let's say, the improper way, but I've done it so many times that I can say I can do it the improper way and I'm not going to damage anything. Sometimes you will pull out this little latch. It's not a big deal. The latch is easy to put back in. Good thing that I did it right now so that you can actually see how to put it back in. There's some tape here. If it bends a little bit, it's not a big deal as well. We can bend it back. There's a small little hole on the side of the connector that actually goes in. That little latch goes in, so you put it back in and it's good to go. It's pretty small, so there we go. Okay, so we're gonna put this cable in now. Bend this a little bit forward so that you can actually get enough movement with the cable. You see that the cable can actually, maybe you cannot see because of my fingers, but the cable goes sideways, and this is a perfect example of how you blow the fuse. So don't do this if you haven't done it before differently. Just do it like this, you'll be safe, nothing's gonna happen. It's a brand new screen, so in most of the cases it works. Sometimes you'll get a DOA screen, so you gotta do it all over again. You put a little bit of electrical tape over it, and then you push this in. gonna put the cable back in there. You don't have to worry if the cable goes in straight or sideways. Main thing is that you push it in all the way, make sure that the little ledge covers it, holds it properly. You're gonna put back the little bracket. And then we're gonna put the battery back in there. We can test it afterwards. Like I said, most of the customers that use this model are very picky. So make it look the same like it looked before, or you will have complaints. They will bring it back to you. If you're doing it for yourself, then pretty much whatever you do with it, you're gonna have to live with it. Put the screws back on. Make sure, if you're doing it the first time, make sure you put these screws back in flat inside the holes. You don't want the screw screwed in sideways, and then it's going to stick out a little bit and you're going to scratch your table. It seems like we got a missing screw. That's no problem, I had spare ones to replace that. Okay, we'll take care of that later. Let's get back to the screen. Test it before you screw it in. See if it turns on, lights up. As you can see, the screen is good, everything is fine. Here we go, and the Seppo logo. Put the 6 screws back on that hold the screen. Okay, there is one very important thing before you put the bezel on. Make sure that the camera works. Make sure that the computer goes to sleep. There's no reason for me to test it because I know this camera is good. The sleep sensor is tripped by this little magnet. If this little magnet comes out, you will not have the sleep mode. So if you close the lid, it will not go into sleep. Make sure that that little magnet is in there so you don't have a problem later. Okay, so the only thing I'm going to clean on the bezel is from these black pieces. There is a little cover, a little sheet which is not even the tape, something that's there. Because it's sticking out a little bit. Other than that, you don't actually have to clean this one because of this spongy tape on the side. Okay, so we're gonna apply back the tape. You can see it turned on, booted up, everything's cool. All the length, all the way. This is a metal bezel, like I said. You bend it a little bit, you don't glue it up properly, it will start bending, it will come out, and it will not look nice afterwards. So all around with the tape, make sure it's glued in properly. It's not glue actually, just a double-sided adhesive. As you can see, I'm putting the tape over the actual black spongy tape, because that's the part that glues back to the screen. And this is the main part that holds everything back together. A little bit too much here. There we go. By the way, we don't need to do anymore. last one. It's getting hot in here. I can't wait to finish this video so that I can turn my AC back on. I turned it off because you guys can't probably hear me because it's loud in here. Okay, so hurry this up a little bit. Let's remove this thing. The only last thing you gotta do is take this off and put the bezel back in, and then it's good to go. As you can see, this is not a lengthy repair, and it's not a hard repair, as long as you're careful. This protective sheeting. Let's get the computer back here. There's a little bit of tape. I'm pushing the deck so you can't see it. There's a little hole in there that will go in, so don't worry about that. Bezel goes back in. The little pins, if you didn't break them, they will snap in the holes, and that's a perfect thing because it stretches the bezel out and holds the bezel perfectly clean on the screen. No damages on the rubber trim, no bends on the bezel. Good as new. Since we took out the battery, you notice the message that the time went back into 2008. Connect back to your Wi-Fi, and when you do that, make sure you have the automatic, actually 2000, not 2008, make sure you have the automatic date set here. So when it connects back to the Wi-Fi, what it will do, it will go back, it will read the server, time server, and it will go back to the year where it's supposed to go. So since this is a customer's computer, I can't do that because I can't do it manually because it actually requires his password, which is not important. But if you don't change this, I will take care of it later for my customer. But if you don't change this, you will not be able to open web pages. It will give you errors like the certificate is not clean, it won't be read, or something like that. I don't know, security issues. So you need to put the date back on every single time you take the battery out, because that's what gets reset. That's pretty much it for this repair. See you next time.